Alright, so today we kind of wanted to make sure that we caught up with where you were before and get an idea for sort of what your skill level is, and try to point out a few key things that should help you going forward, and then think about songs that you might like, or maybe even just artists you might like, so that in the future we can use those as tools to learn more about theory, learn more about technique, and have it be something that you want to do rather than just sitting around doing mindless scales and stuff like that. I'll try to break it down. So the things that we went over today a little bit were the distances between the major notes in the different scales. So what I wrote down on this one piece of paper is how many, what the steps are between like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. So there's a whole step, which is 2 frets between A and B. There's only 2 times where you have half steps, and that's between B and C, so that's just 1 fret. And then C and D is a whole step, D and E is a whole step, E and F is your other half step, so that's just 1 fret again. F and G is a whole step, and then back between G and A is a whole step. This applies, we were talking about tuning, how to tune your guitar to itself rather than with a tuner, as long as you have one of the strings tuned. This whole step, half step thing applies to that in order to find what the next note is. So for instance, you find yourself on the 5th fret for most of the times you're tuning, except for on the G to the B string, and that's because of this distance between the notes. So for example, we get through E, just say all you have is a tuning fork and it's tuned to E, and you just slam it against the wall and you tune it to that, and like, oh man, what am I going to do? How am I going to get this thing in tune? Well, by knowing the names of the strings and by knowing the distances is how you get there. So you have E, the low string here, between E and F, you're only half step, so that would be open in the 1st fret, and between F and G is a whole step, and between G and A is a whole step. So that's why we end up on the 5th fret there to tune the next string, which is A. Same thing applies to the next few strings, and that's why you end up on the 4th fret when you're trying to tune the B string, because you have G and A is a whole step, and between A and B is a whole step. It's not the C. If you were tuning on the 5th fret all the way across the board, you would end up tuning your B string to C, which is not right. So this little thing is written down there for just for your own reference for tuning. I recommend doing a dexterity exercise probably before you sit down to learn anything new or sit down to practice any scales or anything like that. Maybe at least go down to the 5th fret with this dexterity exercise, which is keeping 1 finger per fret, just going in order up 4 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way like that. Get to the end of the strings and then go backwards after moving a fret up. So you're 5, 4, 3, 2, and so forth. Keeping your fingers close to the fretboard so that you can be ready to move to the next string wherever you are, whether you're going up or back. And when you're doing this, make sure to use alternate picking where you're going down, up, down, up, down, up, because it's really going to help with efficiency of picking. It'll help your speed, and it'll just get you in a better place in general. So that would look like this. I'm going to try that like this. So down, up, 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 down, up. So that's what I mean when I say alternate picking. So do that, maybe go all the way to the 5th fret, go all the way to the 12th fret if you feel like you've got the time and the patience and you want to do it. That's totally cool, but do it at least a couple times, maybe a day, or however often you pick up your guitar. Another thing we were looking at, you say you like to look up tabs, and one of the persons we pulled up didn't have any of the keys listed on top of it. So there's a couple of sort of rudimentary tricks that you can use. They're not always going to be true across the board, but if you look to the low note in what's being played, if it's being played along with another note, chances are that might be the root of the chord. So we were looking at the Lord of the Rings, and you had this thing where you were plucking the high E string along with the C note that's on the 3rd fret of the A string. So when we kind of investigated a little bit, we saw that that's probably a C chord. And so to help you with, arpeggios are just single notes in a chord. So instead of moving your fingers all around the fret, it's kind of good to find out what the chords are and then make that chord. And then that way, for instance, if you're just plucking this, but you could also pluck other notes within this chord if you are holding it down. But if you were only like playing that string and that open note, and you tried to pluck those other chords, you're playing an entirely different chord. You're like probably like it's not, it doesn't sound right, you know. So that's part of it. And then we talked about some common chord progressions. 1-4-5 is one of the most ultimately common one. The 1 is the key of the song that you're in. So a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times this is the first chord that's being played. We'll get into like circle of fifths and things that really help you examine, you know, how to tell what the key is. But a lot of times that's kind of a rule of thumb that you can use. There's also other common progressions, and this is also related to the circle of fifths. The Lord of the Rings thing that we saw is 1-4-6 minor, and that's also very common, and we can get into why that is a little bit later. So that means when we got to that A, like we found that it, these three notes in order, so you're like, oh, okay, that could be an A. But if you're looking at these common progressions, that's most likely to be a 6 minor instead. Because otherwise, if it was 1-4-5, it would be C, F, G. And according to what the tab was, that was not what was being played. So that'd be pretty clearly this versus that. You know? So you can assume some things once you know a little bit more about the common progressions. And it helps you fix the problem of them not giving you keys. And then that allows you to have better control over how you're going to learn the song. We talked a little bit about how you're learning bar chords and how they're modular, they can move up the frets, and once you know the distances between the notes, you can know which chords that you're trying to play. So if you're looking at something and you're trying to transpose it into a bar chord situation, you're like, okay, that's like that's a B, okay, cool, B is there, but if you wanted to play that B down there, you could do that because you know that the root note down here, from doing this little exercise of knowing half and whole steps, where to find the B, and that being the root, when you play the bar chord, that's where it's at. You know? So that's pretty helpful. And we talked a little bit about, you've already gone over the most basic pentatonic scale, but expanding that a little bit. So I wrote down as well. So if the most basic one is like 1-4, 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 1-4, 1-4. There's also some different notes that can be put in there that's just going to expand your palette of what to do. And this is just sort of a for instance. You would add this G to that scale on the 3rd fret of the string. And so if you were taking that and extrapolating it through that scale, so just to show that different scales apply to different keys, and it's not always, just because you're shown a limited amount of notes doesn't mean that you're limited to only those notes. And it's going to take going through the different scales and finding out how they relate to different keys. Once you do learn that, your finger's going to know where to go, and you're going to know to your ear what sounds good, and you're going to develop some muscle memory that will allow you to just, start improvising along with songs, kind of seeing in advance where you think your fingers need to be, and things like that. And it's going to do nothing but help you. So we'll go over some circle of fifths stuff later on. You're going to think about some people that you like to listen to, and we're going to try to break down some of their songs and show how there are key concepts within them, and you can play along with those, and you'll be learning and having fun at the same time instead of just running scales all day. So, any questions or anything?
I'm good for now.
Okay, cool. Well, I will see you next time. Yeah.